UFC Fight Night Vegas 49, Makhachev versus Green just took place, and I'm going to go through the entire card, starting with the early prelims, ending with the main event, giving my reaction and breakdown to every single fight on the card, starting with the early prelim opener of Carlos Hernandez versus Victor Altimirano. I picked Victor Altimirano to win this one, and I thought he genuinely did win this one 2-1 against Carlos Hernandez. I have no idea how one judge scored it 30-27 Carlos Hernandez, because I definitely believe that Victor Altimirano won that third round, but either way, they scored it for Carlos Hernandez. It was a very close fight. Apparently getting split takedowns out of nowhere in this one scores the rounds to Carlos Hernandez, but not in the case of Whittaker against Israel Adesanya. So the judging system in MMA is just like whatever based on whoever is fighting. They just completely switch the rules of MMA. I thought that Carlos Hernandez was not landing anywhere near the same amount of really damaging shots that Victor Altimirano was landing. I thought he was chewing up the body of Carlos Hernandez with very good body shots with the hands and some good body kicks at the end of combinations as well. And I thought that was the main damaging thing in the fight. I thought it was the ribs of Carlos Hernandez being completely reddened up by the body shots and kicks of Victor Altimirano. But apparently those takedowns got the rounds for Carlos Hernandez, and he won the fight on one judge's scorecard 30-27, which is just strange. But either way, we move on up the card to another fight, which was Ramiz Brahimaj versus Michael Gillmore. Very impressive performance by Ramiz Brahimaj here in the second fight on the card. I picked him to go out there and win this one by first round rear naked choke, because I did believe this was an easy victory for him. It's Michael Gillmore. No idea why he's even in the UFC in the first place, and this fight kind of showed us why. He doesn't belong in the UFC whatsoever. But here he is. I believe he was on tough, so they just sign you anyway now because the UFC is degrading in skill level as the years go on. But either way, Ramiz Brahimaj, I picked him to win this one by first round rear naked choke, and he went out there and won it by first round rear naked choke. No one even landed a strike before Ramiz Brahimaj got his double leg takedown under the shot of Michael Gillmore, got the takedown, ended up on top, and just sort of smushed him from there, going from submission to submission. Tried the rear naked choke a couple of times and didn't have it before eventually cinching it up and getting the rear naked choke win in the first round. Very good win by Ramiz Brahimaj, and exactly how I said he was going to win, so thank you for making me look so smart. Moving on up the card, Jonathan Martinez versus Alejandro Perez. Jonathan Martinez wins this one by decision and looked very good in this fight as well, outside of one moment at the end of the first round and maybe at the end of the second round as well, because end of the first, he gets dropped really badly by Alejandro Perez, and I know that he completely outstruck Alejandro Perez in that round, but I still believe that dropping someone that badly at the end of the first, it wasn't like he got wobbled off balance and popped right back up. He got slumped badly at the end of the first round, like almost like if there was an extra 30 seconds at the end of the round, it probably would have been a finish. But either way, he bounces back in the second, looks good there and edges out that round early on, even though Alejandro Perez makes a bit of a last hurrah at the end of the second round to try and get the round back for himself. And then round 3 was just extra dominant from Jonathan Martinez, starting to find his timing, still chopping at the legs, landing that really nice front kick to the body, and he just won this fight as the rounds went on, stuffing the takedowns and making it work on the feet, because Alejandro Perez was missing so many shots. There were so many counter opportunities for Jonathan Martinez, and he took advantage of them more and more as the fight went on, and arguably could have even got the first round, but I still gave it to Perez. 29-28 Jonathan Martinez. I picked him 30-27 or 30-26, something like that. But either way, he won the fight. Very good performance. Moving on up the card, Terrance McKinney versus Ziam. Maybe one of the more impressive performances on the card. I'm actually shocked he didn't get a performance bonus, because he was an underdog. That's interesting. Arman Tsarukyan got it from that slip, but okay. I thought that maybe Terrance McKinney, the poor guy on the card who doesn't make a lot of money, should get the money over someone who's got a good contract, like someone higher up on the card. But either way, Terrance McKinney wins against Ziam very impressively in the first round with a rear naked choke. It didn't even look like it was in at first. It looked like he had it off to the side, but either way, he had a hell of a crank on there. Ziam's got a pretty big head as well, so it's kind of useful to use as like an extra sort of crank onto that rear naked choke. He's sort of tilting the head one way while moving his arm in this way, you know, like he's sort of working Ziam against himself in that position. And Ziam eventually had to tap to Terrance McKinney, and this was a very impressive performance as well, because Terrance McKinney showed amazing scrambles. I think I actually might break it down on my second channel, which I have now out now, by the way, so go and try and find that somewhere. Should be in the link in the description, maybe, if I choose to remember. But either way, Terrance McKinney had an amazing performance. Amazing scrambles. Not too much happened on the feet early. Immediately, I feel like McKinney almost slipped off balance due to an inside leg kick, but wound his way up on top. Had a couple of good submission attempts. Ziam escaped a couple of them and rolled out of a couple of them, but eventually it was too much. McKinney cinched up the rear naked choke. Very, very impressive performance by him. Moving on up the card, Josiane Nunes versus Ramona Pascual. I went with Josiane Nunes here by first round TKO. She ended up taking it to a decision, and that made sense to me. Good win from her. She dominated the fight pretty much, but Ramona Pascual, good for her, you know, because she was in there with this absolute lab experiment, and she held her own, and the first round was quite close, but she got dropped in that first round, so of course you give that round to Josiane Nunes. Third round was dominant Josiane Nunes. Second round arguably could have been a 10-8 round, but I don't know if I would have scored it a 10-8 round, but of course, women's MMA, easier to get 10-8 rounds, so they gave her a 10-8 round in round 2. I'm not arguing too hard on that, but Josiane Nunes won the fight. Very impressive performance. She showed that she can go 3 rounds as well while swinging like a maniac and swinging with heavy, heavy power, which is good to see, because usually when you see someone have a bunch of first round KOs in their career and big power, you think she's probably going to gas out as the fight goes on. But no, she had a good performance over 3 rounds. Good win by Josiane Nunes. Moving on up the card, Ignacio Bahamondes versus Rong, another guy who didn't get a performance bonus here that maybe should have got one, because his performance against Rong was flawless. He got cracked a couple of times maybe, but other than that, Ignacio Bahamondes looked apex out there. He was absolutely amazing, tuning up Rong at range, landing great front kicks to the body, jabbing off of both sides. He was switching stances and jabbing off of both lead hands, straight shots off of both rear hands as well, whatever stance he switched to. I mean, he looked amazing out there, and he looked like a complete martial artist, at least on the feet as well, because he showed amazing technique in every area on the feet, outlanding Rong completely every single round. It got worse and worse as the rounds went on. Round 2 was very dominant for Ignacio Bahamondes. I'm actually going to check the stats right now. It was 60-31, and round 1 was 42-9 for Ignacio Bahamondes. Round 3, 24-8. And I do believe that Rong eventually did choose to lose that fight with that takedown, because you can't shoot takedowns like that in MMA and not expect to get choked out for it, because, you know, you deserve to get choked out in that position, and Ignacio Bahamondes latched up a guillotine choke. I thought it was like a little dash choke at first because of the way his arms were cranked, but apparently it was like a north-south guillotine choke, so good for Ignacio Bahamondes. Amazing performance, eventually making Rong shoot because he doesn't want to stand up anymore in the third round, and finds his rear naked choke, or finds his guillotine choke, sorry. Very good win. And didn't slow down either, and took some big shots off Rong as well. That was a good prospect fight, and it got really well handled by Ignacio Bahamondes, and he moves on up the division. Very impressive performance. Moving on up the card, Arman Petrosyan versus Gregory Rodrigues. I don't know why people think this was a robbery. I thought Arman Petrosyan won this fight very clearly. I thought he won it by literally doubling Gregory Rodrigues on significant strikes. I don't know what people were watching, but on all of the moments on the feet, I was watching Arman Petrosyan completely outland Gregory Rodrigues. I understand at one point in the third round, mainly the argument is that the first round is Petrosyan's. I don't think that's a question. Second round is Gregory Rodrigues, but that's still debatable. But Gregory Rodrigues can win the second. But then it comes down to the third round, really, even if you think Gregory Rodrigues won. And in the third round, he got doubled on significant strikes, at least. Getting a takedown and those submission attempts only comes into play. Like, I love Twitter and Instagram. The way they call this fight a robbery and the fact that they don't agree with the decision is, like, interesting. A lot of people were saying robbery in my live chat. The same people that won't give Whittaker the win over Adesanya, they were even on the feet, Whittaker and Adesanya. And Whittaker took him down and had submission attempts, and took him down anyway and got those takedowns. They don't even give Whittaker the round for those moments. But Gregory Rodrigues can get doubled and win the round anyway for a takedown in the submission attempt. Fuck off. Arman Petrosyan won the first and the third, maybe even the second, but I'll give the second to Gregory, just for Pete's sake. And in the first and third, in my opinion, were Arman Petrosyan. Even when he got rocked by the head kick in the third round, he came back and rocked Gregory with a head kick at the end of the third round and started piecing him up against the cage. So I thought Arman Petrosyan won that one. Very impressive performance. Scrappy bout back and forth. And somehow managed to outstrike a guy with a massive reach advantage over him. So good for Arman Petrosyan. Very impressive performance. In his debut as well. Gregory Rodrigues in his debut and he wins. However he wins, he wins. Very impressive. Moving on up the card. Arman Tsarukyan versus Joel Alvarez. I hated this. Very good win by Arman Tsarukyan. Very good performance after he had a blind opponent in front of him and started dominating the fight and piecing him up on the ground and finishing him in the second round by TKO. I am not angry that Arman Tsarukyan won. I picked Arman Tsarukyan to beat Islam Makhachev in his debut in the UFC. I've been on this guy's balls for the very start of his career, okay? I've loved Arman Tsarukyan's career. I've watched him on the regional shows. I've been all over this guy. I also picked Joel Alvarez to win, which is what people think shapes my opinion, but it doesn't. I wanted to see how Arman Tsarukyan would deal with the stand-up of Joel Alvarez, and I wanted to see if Joel Alvarez could stuff some takedowns of Arman Tsarukyan and keep it standing. Instead, what did we get? A weirdly timed slip on one leg from Joel Alvarez, falls right into the worst position he possibly can be in, and Arman Tsarukyan's on top of him. Doing nothing, by the way, at the start of the first round. Nothing really whatsoever. Joel Alvarez landing some elbows off of his back. Arman landing a couple of total strikes with the hands to keep busy in that position. But not really anything. And then he lands that one elbow with a minute left in the first round. It cuts. This is where people don't like the word fluke. It cuts so perfectly from here to here. Which means that blood is leaking from both sides into both eyes. And that causes basically your eye sockets to just pool up with blood, which is a blind person that you've now got in front of you. And I would love to give Arman Tsarukyan full credit here, but I feel like I was crushed by this fight. I was waiting for something so crazy. Oh my God, it's going to happen. This is going to be the great matchup. Two massive prospects in the lightweight division. He slips on his ass immediately, ends up on the ground. Nothing really happens for 3 minutes, and he gets a cut that travels from both one eye to the other and bloods out both of his eyes so he can't see anything. And Arman Tsarukyan basically beats up a blind man from that round onwards. Very good win by Arman Tsarukyan. I wish it would have been done in a different fashion. I wish he would have just, won. But he won! He won. Arman Tsarukyan won. He clearly won. Very good performance from him. I just wanted to see it, go down. You know what I mean? Rather than just, he slipped and he's in the worst position possible for himself. You know what I mean? Oh, and now he's blind. That kind of annoyed me. But either way, good win from Arman Tsarukyan. He's going to be the next big thing in that lightweight division. Whoever won this Alvarez-Tsarukyan matchup is going to fight for a belt at some point. So, good for Arman Tsarukyan. It was in his favor today and he got the job done. And plus, he arguably was the favourite anyway, so you could argue he should have won anyway. Moving on, up the card. Priscila Cachoeira versus Jeon Kim. Right, this was a robbery. I watched it back to make sure, just to make sure, it was a robbery. I watched back some of the rounds that I needed to. Priscila Cachoeira can win round 1. She does not win round 2 or 3. I want to read you some numbers that even if are incorrect by a couple of strikes, I need to read you these numbers. 171 significant strikes to 102. Okay? Priscila Cachoeira versus Jeon Kim round 1. 31 to Jeon Kim significant strikes. 18 to Priscila Cachoeira. I still gave it to Cachoeira because I felt like she landed some of the bigger shots. And I didn't know Jeon Kim was leading by that much. Round 2. 54 to 32 in favour of Jeon Kim. I unanimously gave her that round. I think all of the judges did as well. Round 3. 85 to 52 in favour of Jeon Kim. I know. And I know why the judges gave it to Priscila Cachoeira. She sliced open Jeon Kim at the end with good elbows and good knees. For the last 30 seconds of the third round, she landed about 20 significant strikes. But for the first 4 minutes of that round, in round 3, Jeon Kim is piecing up Priscila Cachoeira over and over again, multiple shots in a row, ping, 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 as Cachoeira is standing there in the middle getting her head spun around. And Cachoeira, despite rocking Jeon Kim at the end of the third, which some people may argue, well, Cachoeira rocked her at the end of the third, she got rocked at the start of the third. She got wobbled by big shots and was backed up against the cage on 2 occasions. How did they give that fight to Priscila Cachoeira? Jeon Kim is a good fighter who's winning, arguably, her fights. Lost a very close one to Molly McCann. But she should have won this fight against Priscila Cachoeira. And now she's on a 2-fight win streak and she might get cut. We're messing with people's lives here. Fair play, she got 50k bonus, but that's not what she wants. I'm sure she wants a win. And I thought she rightfully earned a win in rounds 2 and 3. And you could arguably give her round 1, but I didn't. Because I thought Cachoeira landed more big shots. And I give her round 1. Round 2 and 3, though. Jeon Kim. It was close, but it was clear. And I don't know how they gave it to Priscila Cachoeira. But there you go. Saudi Amato, Adelaide Bird, Mike Bell will all be on every single judge's scorecard sheet. Till the rest of time. They can't be fired. There's no way they can ever be fired. I have no idea. I've never... Think about jobs in general. You get fired. The Prime Minister gets fucking fired. The President gets fired. Not the judges for MMA and combat sports that are hired by the commission that also run the gambling as well. Not them. Got to make sure they destroy 5 parlays a card. Fucking rigged. And we're not even talking about Josh Taylor versus fucking Catter or whatever his name is. I can't even remember the other guy's name. But he got robbed. Either way. Moving on to another fight which took place, which was Misha Cirkunov versus Wellington Turman. I thought Misha Cirkunov was well on his way to winning this one after the first round. There was a moment where I thought he lost when a rear naked choke was in on the back from Wellington Turman. But eventually, Misha Cirkunov fought his way out of it. Somehow, and he done it mainly by not fighting the hands but fighting the feet, because you noticed Wellington Turman didn't have a body triangle and didn't really have great balance on his back, although he did have a rear naked choke that looked like it was in. So he fought the legs to make sort of Wellington Turman's squeeze work against itself. So he's now squeezing whilst falling off. So instead of like squeezing on the choke, he's like keeping himself attached to Misha Cirkunov, who eventually ends up on top and starts beating the shit out of Wellington Turman on top of him at the end of the first round. So much so that for no fucking reason whatsoever, Michael Bisping screams out, "He's unconscious!" Even though he was not unconscious whatsoever. In any moment ever was Wellington Turman unconscious in that first round. But Cirkunov was putting such a beating on him that Bisping's one eye was make-believing that Wellington Turman was out cold, to where Bisping is screaming, "He's unconscious!" He's no way unconscious. I'm telling you guys about Bisping's commentary, and I hope you all noticed it as well. Go back to my video, it's aging quite well. But either way, Cirkunov eventually gets the armbar out of nowhere in a second. Or no, Turman gets the armbar out of nowhere in a second, gets a 50k performance bonus. Why? I don't know. I would rather have given it to Terrance McKinney, Ignacio Bahamondes, but Wellington Turman, he gets such good positioning on cards. He's got gyno nips. He's got acne all over his back. I think I think he knows someone in the business. I don't know what's going on with Wellington Turman. He gets such favoritism. But good armbar in the second round out of nowhere. Cirkunov tapped immediately after the armbar. It was locked up immediately. I don't know if he could have escaped it in any way. I'm sure he could have, but it was so quickly latched up, he didn't want to break his arm. Cirkunov's probably going to get cut from the UFC now. Wellington Turman gets the job done. Moving on up the card, Islam Makhachev versus Bobby Green. I picked Islam Makhachev to win by second round rear naked choke. He ended up getting the job done by first round TKO to punches to the shoulder and arm. Really, really sucks to be the arms of Bobby Green. They took a real vicious beating. Enough for the referee to step in. Like, oh God, this man's arms have fingers they have to go home to. You know what I mean? Like, so justified stoppage. God, his shoulders were taking a mushing. But either way, no, it would have been a finish anyway. I know a lot of people are talking about early stoppage, including myself, but it would have been a finish for Makhachev regardless. He was on top. Bobby Green weren't going anywhere. Maybe he could have scrambled, which is what I like to see a ref give the fighter a chance to do. Like, in some way, maybe scramble back into half guard on bottom and then hold on from there until the end of the end of the first round. But either way, Makhachev looked like he was going to dominate. He got a hold of Bobby Green, and he's just too strong, too big 10 pounds of muscle bigger than everyone at lightweight. I mean, you can't beat it. Islam Makhachev. Very, very dominant win. Very good performance as well. Looked very defensively aware on the feet, more than we've seen before of his career. Because, of course, I made a video breaking down his loss to Adriano Martins, where I showed how bad his striking defense was. Much better striking etiquette. Much better awareness on the feet. Eventually went for his takedown and got the job done. Beneil Dariush rebooking. I don't want to see a title fight after beating Bobby Green on a week's notice. Fuck that shit. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye. Toodle pip.